All right, so I'm here at Baltimore's Inner Harbor, and right behind me you'll see one of the oldest lighthouses still in existence in America. And it's right here at Baltimore's Inner Harbor, Pier 5. I'm going to continue reading from Chapter 1, Learning to Embrace Your Inner Nigger. Another contact I used quite often was John Metzger, the son of Tom Metzger, former head of the White Aryan Resistance. Like father, like son. We had spoken so often, our conversations usually focused on topics we both agreed upon before getting down to the business of talking about race. But if you had been sitting in my office listening to the timbre of the conversation, chances are you would have assumed I was speaking to anyone but a racist. I completely understood where John was coming from on many levels. For every stereotype, there is an archetype. John, his dad, and others like them were wired to see only the stereotypes that drove their hatred and perhaps fears. Which brings us back to Greg. Before sending him away, armed with the numbers of a couple surefire racists, we needed to have an in-depth discussion about what it took to produce a great interracial dating show. The required ingredients are as follows. First, you needed 3 to 4 interracial couples, with an emphasis on really black, uncouth men who exclusively dated white women. It was very important to find the most white-bread looking white girls possible, meaning the more innocent and pure she appeared on the outside, the better. You had to play upon the negative stereotypes for the audience's sake, since most of the audience was white. White people tend to become repulsed by the sight of a beautiful, innocent-looking white girl caught up in the clutches of an uncouth black beast. Harsh, I know, but that was the reality of producing a great talk show for ratings. In our efforts to find just the right guest, producers and researchers would canvass long lists of contactees from around the country to fit the bill. We required photographs of guests faxed to the office before a producer finalized the booking. My first two standing rules were that guests had to have their 2 front teeth intact and all their limbs. No wooden arms or missing arms. There's a famous story of a guest with a wooden eye that got through once. Regrettably, it popped out during the taping of the show and bounced right into the studio audience, causing quite a scene. After booking the couples, you then needed a crazy, neck-rocking, finger-pointing white woman who only dated black men. This chick had to be blonde, way over the top, and in the face of all opposition like a bad odor. We have literally dyed brunettes blonde just before the taping of a show if the guest was right, but the hair color wasn't. Next, to stir the pot, we added a few select members of the white woman's family, like her father, mother, close friends, or a neighbor who hated seeing her with black men. Then, for the coup de grace of this unseemly brew, we added just the right pinch of racist, preferably a KKK member, because they would come wearing the Klan's signature white robes, pointed hoods, and an over-the-top racist attitude. After our discussion and a few hours of leaving Greg alone to book the show, I called him back to my office for a progress report. To my surprise, he hadn't booked any of the Klan referrals I had given him. When I asked why, he replied, "I called the first guy you gave me, and after I told him what the show was about, he said, 'Boy, you sound like a nigger, and I don't like talking to niggers.' 'What did you do?' I asked. Flustered, Greg continued, 'Well, I corrected him, and I told him I was a black man, and he said, 'That's right, a nigger.' When I told him to stop calling me a nigger, he hung up on me. The other guy you gave me pretty much said the same thing. 'Look, man, I don't have to take this shit off of anybody. Calling me a nigger,' he mumbled." It was right then I realized Greg wasn't going to make it as a talk show producer. Greg, I sighed. "Can you tell me what you did wrong?" I asked, laughing, trying to lighten his mood a little bit. He glared back at me as if I had just insulted his mother, booming, "What I did wrong? You're kidding, right?" "No, I'm very serious," I replied calmly. "How is it my fault?" Greg complained. "The man called me a nigger." Greg, the zen of being a talk show producer and booking a racist is that when the guy asks if you're a nigger, the proper response is, "Okay, so I'm a nigger." Then you laugh and say, "But the only way your ass is getting on my show to talk about the purity of the white race is to talk to this nigger." Of course, Greg was astounded. I continued. Then you say, "Listen, I understand how you feel, because I may be a black man, but I can't stand seeing niggers date white women either, like you really mean it." But my girlfriend is white. How am I gonna say some shit like that? That's crazy, Greg protested. Cause you're a talk show producer, man. Get it through your head. This isn't about you or who you date or what you believe. To the Klan, you are just a dirty nigger. Don't you get it? I guess, he said, caught catching himself. And then his expression changed to a look of disappointment. What? You're upset because you wanted to produce shows that made a difference? Yes. You wanted to produce shows that would make your mama proud or to represent the black man in a positive light? Is that it? Well, why not? Greg asked, getting angry. Why can't we make a positive difference? You're black and you're the executive producer. Why do we have to do what everybody else does and deal with these lowlifes? Greg, may I be candid with you? Yes, he replied, sitting back in his chair. When I say candid, I mean brutally honest. The kind of honesty I never want to hear repeated or I will become your worst nightmare. Go ahead. Why the hell do you think you have this job? Why do I have this job? He repeated, pausing with a bewildered expression on his face. Because I'm qualified. You must be out of your mind, I said, laughing. You may be many things, but one thing you are not is qualified for this job. Why do you say that? You hired me, didn't you? Greg, I hired you because my bosses told me we needed more diversity. So in essence, what they were saying is I needed to hire a nigger. And that's bad? Oh, I see. So you don't mind being called a nigger to get paid, huh? No. And you'd gladly step up and be my nigger to the diversity rescue, right? That's right, he said with a matter-of-fact tone. Because even in the lower end of the pay scale, you're still making more money than you'd imagine you'd be making at this point in your life. Am I right or am I wrong? You're right, he replied, looking quite pleased with himself. Well, you are unqualified because you're sitting there talking about making a difference as a black man in a setting where all you are is a tool for an entertainment agenda geared primarily towards white folks. The only kind of blacks white people want to see on TV, son, are your basic entertaining niggers. Niggers playing games or doing silly things. It's in their genes, I said, laughing. Greg's head was a-spinning. Haven't you ever watched this show, Greg? Have you ever seen us do anything other than bring out the worst in people for the entertainment of our core audience? But that doesn't mean we don't have to try to be more. Stop, I said, cutting him off. The folks who pay the bills around here, as well as the people who watch this show, want exactly what we're giving them. Entertaining niggas. Damn, Greg said. If you want to make a real difference, approach your job as if the color of your skin or who you are as a so-called black man doesn't matter. Or take a 50% pay cut and go work for BET. Damn, but true. The bottom line is neither your blackness nor slavery, or for that matter, my Jewish producer's ancestral connections to the Holocaust should stand in the way of either of you speaking to or booking a neo-Nazi. Man, that's cold-hearted. Cold-hearted? It's our job. If I called Jay Silverman into my office right now and told him I needed a neo-Nazi, he'd be back to me within 15, 20 minutes tops with 3 to choose from. You know Jay. Am I right or am I wrong? Jay, absolutely, he agreed. And why is that? Because he gets it. He can turn off the cultural switch to get the job done. But that doesn't mean the people we're booking have to be disrespectful, Greg insisted. If a guy is disrespectful enough to call you a nigger over the phone simply because you sound like one, then that man is going to be a great guest. That's crazy. Here's crazy. You have to learn to embrace your inner nigger, son, when dealing with a racist. Because in this setting, a Klansman calling you or an audience full of black people niggers is a good thing. I said, laughing. Now be a good nigger and go book a racist.